Sweet. Awesome. Well, welcome back to the Out of the Woods podcast. Super excited about this one. We've known each other for a little bit of time at this point, 3-4 years. Got to see the evolution of CROSSNET since kind of the beginning. We got Chris Meade, the founder, and I guess what CMO is the day-to-day responsibility there.
Day-to-day.
Chief everything officer. Yeah, chief
Exactly.
everything officer. I guess that's kind of the mentality on the team, but excited to have you on.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. It's been fun following your journey over the past 4 years. Just very inspiring as well. So thanks for everything.
Yep, for sure. Likewise. I mean, there's this, I've had a lot of bootstrap type founders on here, and I know that maybe your path's going to evolve and our path's going to evolve, but we still always have kind of that DNA in how we do things and that scrappiness. And I think it's always fun talking to other people that have gone through building, legitimate sized businesses and the millions of dollars in revenue, but had to do it with shoestring budgets because it's just a totally different way of doing it and a totally different mentality. And I think you probably had to do it out of necessity in the beginning, right?
Dude, absolute necessity, man. We literally grew up on food stamps. So I got out of college, bro, and it's $120K in debt for a film school degree. And then I started working on the film set.
Are you getting this Biden, removal of debt?
I am. I'm fully signing up for it. I don't know if my income qualifies now, sadly, but yeah, I've been chilling, waiting to get some free money. But back to the story, right? We're getting paid $12 an hour on a film set, and you owe $120K to the bank. The math
that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
those film sets too. That's like grueling work too, right? You guys are out there till 2 a.m, 3 a.m. You're back there at 8 a.m.
The worst lifestyle I've ever lived. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I'd not get home till 10 o'clock, and I'd do it 5 days a week, and for $12 an hour. So, anyways, long story short, get into sales. We home one night with my buddies, and we're just writing down a bunch of ideas to get rich. And 4-way volleyball, I guess, was the best idea that we thought of. And quit our jobs a few months later, pulled out like $15K from our bank account, and started the business.
How do you even think? I mean, starting like a physical products business is such a stretch. It's one thing, you could be like a no code entrepreneur or start some software thing, or, there's a lot easier businesses to start to be able to make some money, off the bat. But you went after building like a custom product. Like why did you kind of put yourself through that pain and challenge? And then did you have the capital to get like the initial molds? Like how'd you figure out the suppliers? Like what was the original kind of story?
Yeah, I mean, for us farmtown kids in Connecticut, software is not even a thing people do or think of.
What do you think they'd say if you said like, yeah, I started a SaaS company, in your
they wouldn't know what the fuck SaaS is. Nobody would know what SaaS is. Nobody still knows what SaaS is. I was at the Salesforce building over the weekend with my bachelor party, and nobody knew what Salesforce was. And it's just like it's an interesting lifestyle. But anyways, love Woodstock, Connecticut. But the idea of creating a hard good and not even thinking about, we need to maintain 70% profit margins, like that's not something. It was, okay, let's go in our backyard and try to whip something up. So we got 2 badminton nets from Walmart. We cut out the center. We put it like on the side of my mom's shed in her garden. I texted all the boys, and everyone came over, and we played for like 4 hours. And that was our proof of concept day. And we all looked at each other. Nobody was complaining about their girlfriends or their job. And all right, we're like, if we would play this, why wouldn't every kid in America go play it?
And you were just kind of like, did you do a lot of things like that growing up, just like randomly creating shit, or were you like an entrepreneurial kid?
Yeah, I was definitely an entrepreneurial kid. The business before that, we sold sugarcane hookah. So my college roommate lived in Jamaica, and like we'd import sugarcane on boats and then put like flavoring seasoning on it and then sell it to hookah lounges. So like we were doing that for a while, flipping concert tickets, like listing stuff on Amazon and drop shipping it when I was like 21. So yeah, I was always like hustling to do that. And then we looked at each other and we're like, dude, this is dope. And nobody had ever made it before. And we're like, how is that even possible? Because like, if we don't do it, somebody's going to do it in 10 years. And we're going to be like, oh, that was the idea we never did, while we're still like at our miserable job. So I'm glad we took the chance.
Was it like an immediate, like, oh, we need to turn this into a product and a business? Or was it like, did you sit on it for months and then kind of say, okay, we should probably do something with this?
It was like within weeks. We had that proof of concept night, and it stayed up in the backyard, right? So it's like you go outside and you're like, oh, that game's still around. Yeah, let me go play it. And like us wanting to go back and play like was a sign that this game was like working and that it would be fun for everybody. Because like yeah, we could have just let it sit there. But no, like the amount of fun that we had from our first session made us want to play every day for like a month. And we're like, all right, let's go do this. And then going back to your last question, it was like we won on Alibaba and AliExpress. We used to sell like
I love
fake hockey.
Alibaba.
Yeah, dude, we used to sell fake hockey jerseys on like eBay. And so we found like volleyball supplier, message them, be like, pray they don't steal our like secrets, right? And like we don't know what an NDA is back then. And
I don't think
not
they
that
even care about NDAs
yeah,
on Alibaba.
exactly. I was just gonna say that. Sent over a like a little blueprint. Our founder had went to school for engineering, so he knew CAD inside and out. Built a little model, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll do this." And then the hardest part was negotiating a few suppliers against one another, so we could get our minimum like purchase order down to like a couple $1,000 because that's all we had.
That's great. I mean, you were able to get off the ground with a few $1,000 to get the first kind of prototypes done, including
Yeah,
like being able to buy some inventory.
I would say the first 50 units probably ran us like, let's call it 15K. I'd have to look at like but we started the whole business without like 25, 26K.
And what do you think if you were just like you weren't that ambitious and you had like a bunch of money and you're just like, yeah, I'll just find some supplier overseas and pay whatever it is. It would have been like 2x, 3x, 4x more expensive
Oh,
versus.
dude, yeah. Even like I significantly remember like, yes, we did probably get ripped off the first round, but like it wasn't terrible. That we didn't know exactly what we were doing. But I remember when we moved from our first factory, we saved like $20 on our cogs, which was like in our games like
And
2x
how
what our
much was the
retail
cogs
price.
before that? Like that was like,
Oh, dude, we were probably in the beginning. We were probably like importing them all in at like $90 and selling them for like 120. So it's like plus we'd be paying the shipping, so it's like breaking
oh
even.
man.
But
And if you were doing like wholesale into like, retailers, you would have been fucked. There's
oh,
no way you would have
destroyed,
been able to make that.
absolutely destroyed. So yeah, it's been crazy. Yeah, so we literally moved here, right? And that's like right around when I met you actually for the first time. But I'd go to Miami and I'd sell it to some random mom in Kansas City, and then 3 weeks later, what's going on? Kansas City's got sales on Shopify. I've never been to Kansas City in my life. How's this happening? And that's what happened with the first 50, then 100, then now
And
it's like
the
150,000.
woman in Kansas City buying, that was like you met her in Miami. You'd sell it to them in person, or they were on
Yeah.
Shopify.
So I'd sell it to her in person. Yeah, sorry. Sell it to her in person. She'd take it back, be playing in her town. Her neighbor sees it, or her friend comes over and plays. Now I'm getting sales from their city.
Yep.
And so this is what happened with the first 50. And then those 50 kind of multiplied, and it just keeps growing bigger and bigger.
Did you see that like growing up? I mean, in your hometown too? Do like neighbors start to find out like, oh, like Chris has this interesting game, like let's check it out. Like were other people starting to find out about it or?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's Chris has this interesting game. I don't feel like our hometown has ever been much supportive to us and our
Really?
entrepreneurial dreams. No, like our school didn't still. Woodstock Academy still has not bought a CrossNet. I have
Oh my gosh.
15,000 schools that are purchasers. We're not. You haven't made a purchase order. But anyways, it wasn't Chris has
No
this
hard
cool
feelings.
idea. Yeah, fuck Woodstock Academy. But what ended up really happening was these people would go to the beach or they'd go to the park, and 10,000 people would be looking at it throughout the day. 10,000 is probably, well, that number is probably true in Miami Beach, but you'd start picking up impressions, and people
Yep.
would Google it. They'd stop. And eventually what happened in the early days in Miami Beach, like when we were playing, there'd be 45 kids in line. And like, I don't even get to play my own game anymore. And I guess that's a blessing. So then I'm out there taking content on my phone, running home at night, uploading it to Facebook. And now I have fresh content every single day.
And
And it doesn't
people love
cost
to
me anything.
share. People love to share stuff that's like new and different that they are like an early adopter of. So I imagine people are
100%.
like, flipping over to just like tell people like, oh, I found CrossNet, like this new game. Like I'm in
Dude.
the know. So
Yeah,
it's like just naturally lends itself to that virality.
absolutely. And I think our story too, like kind of sacrificing everything we had, quitting our safe jobs, and like everyone kind of can
You're
speak
at
to that
Uber
startup.
originally, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was an Uber salesperson, doing pretty well. But I was a job that, bro, I wanted to leave, like get a new job every 6 months so I could get another take 10K salary raise, right? And like, how long are you gonna play that game for? So
Yep.
no, I think people just resonate with the idea of like creating a sport. Like we've all thought of like cool shit, like don't touch the floor when you're a kid, like the
Oh
the
yeah.
floor's lava, like
Oh, we had so many games growing up. I was
right?
thinking, we used to play this like hockey game with mini hockey nets and hockey sticks, and
Yeah,
like we were
on your
on
knees
our
with pillows.
knees.
Yeah, with pillows. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's always something like that. Like I think you have to have that kind of inventor nature, but I think a lot of kids kind of, they start to lose that inventive kind of, passion as they grow older, and they, because the
Absolutely.
world just keeps telling you like, no, you can't do this, or there's too many reasons why this is so hard. And they just like, forget that like, oh no, you can actually create anything, and I think it's pretty great that you stuck with it and did something that I think a lot of people wish they could do.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's crazy. It's a crazy. There's a lot of lessons that have been learned, a lot of mistakes being made, but at the end of the day, we took something crazy from our head, we made it into a product, and now it's a sport. Like,
Creating a
can't get
sport, I
better
mean,
than that.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Like 50 years from now, 100 years from now, these things are going to outlive you and the people that you partnered
yeah,
with.
that's
And
the goal. That's the goal for sure.
obviously there's a viral nature to it. I mean, that's what spurred. Did you even like spend any money in marketing for the first couple of years, or was it all just kind of, you couldn't really keep up? People were seeing it and they wanted to buy it themselves.
Yeah, it was a good mixture. I mean, we're definitely spending money on Facebook. We're a digital first product. As much as I want to be at the beach every day or get my customer outside, I can't rely on that. So we are digitally first. Also, I like to say you're never going into a Walmart and buying a $150 game that you've never seen before. You just don't do that. The only thing that you buy is a TV for $100 plus at a store that you've never like actually seen work. So back to my point is like we're definitely doing a lot of top of funnel advertising on Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok, Google, and we try to stay lean. I think some of our biggest mistakes are not accurately knowing like our return on ad spend and like shooting for one number, thinking that number backs into like all your margins, and then realizing, dude,
Numbers all fucked.
dude, we're fucked. And if you do that for too long, you really fuck yourself, especially when you're
Yeah.
bootstrapped.
But like
So
marketing funnels are crazy because like if you have one that really works, you're going to scale the shit out of it and build a huge company. But if you have your assumptions wrong, you just like die. You just implode as a
exactly.
company.
And that's what happened for us for about 8 months. So for 8 months, and we're skipping ahead a lot in the CrossNet story, but for 8 months, we were running our performance marketing almost at a loss, thinking that we'd also get the excess from Amazon and retail. Because we saw, obviously, when you spend more money on performance marketing, retail sales would go up.
Yep.
So we're like, oh, let's keep doing this because Walmart's going to hit us with another PO. But what happens when the POs don't come? Because it's September and they don't need the inventory because summer's over. So
Yep.
we'd be running these assumptions for a long time, and yeah, it's so frustrating when you think something's killing it, but it may be killing it because it's too good to be true.
Yep. Well, we'll get into more of that, but I want to take a step back again too. I mean, I didn't get the full story when we were first talking, 3-4 years ago. So, to give people some context, you were at Uber, and then I think you might have left Uber, and you were kind of in this limbo state where you're trying to get this off the ground, but you didn't really have a ton of capital,
Yeah,
and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Do I try to get like a job for now just to make a little bit of money while I still work on this? And I told you at the time, like, one, I think you're a scrappy hustler, but I also think you have like a really interesting product. And I think if you dedicate, full time to it, you're going to be able to, turn it into something. Like what was going through your mind at that time? Like, why'd you reach out to us? And like, what was
yeah.
your situation and
That's funny, bro.
what played out?
You're literally the last person to deny me from a job. So congrats on that. So
Perfect. That's for your own good.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah, it was actually. I love that email. But the thinking was, right, we literally had a doomsday board. So in our bedroom we had a whiteboard that literally said Chris, Greg, and Mike and how much money we had left in our personal bank accounts. And every day it would be like -$8 for chicken tenders, right? $2 from Dunkin' Donuts. And when we got to zero, we said we're all going to go back to our full-time jobs and give this thing up. So at around the point where I got $700 in my bank account, and I'm either, hey, am I going back to my real
And you have a
job?
bunch of debt too, right?
No
At this
debt,
point.
no debt. I just
Oh, the
don't have
student,
my
but the
oh
student
sorry.
debt.
Oh, student. Oh, yeah. We don't even think about that. Yeah, of course we have
Yeah.
student debt. I have tons of student debt. So much that it's crippling me that I'm paying $1,200 a month in student loan debt, and I'm trying to pay for an apartment in Miami, which was much more affordable in 2018 and
Yeah.
2017 than it is now. But yeah, money was fucking dwindling like crazy. CrossNet's not paying me $1. I'm on Upwork
You had
working
placed the
as a
first like inventory buys though at that point, so
of
you had some
course, but
inventory.
we had inventory. Money was coming through, but there's no chance you're going to pay three founders
No.
when daily revenue is $250.
Yeah.
And so yes, I would, dude, I would hustle every single day on Upwork. It would be like an 8-hour shift on CrossNet and a 4-hour shift on Upwork, and I'd build people's Shopify stores with like templates. And I remember building this one, like, the funniest one ever was a mom who's building a stripper pole website, and she had patented a stripper pole. So I had to build a kitty cat salon's stripper pole for, and it'd be $1,000 build. It would take me like 5 days. If I did like $2,000 bills, I could stay alive.
Yep.
But sometimes, so it's just all about staying alive until to CrossNet could pay us. But that took 18 months. So it was
I
doing
think
odd jobs like doing
18
cold
months like that.
calls.
So
18
like 18
months.
months you're juggling some sort of side hustle to make, enough money to kind of go day by day. And how much
Exactly.
of that was that just to cover your expenses, or you were still pouring that back into the business also?
Oh, so there was no more money that was put into the business, which was nice. The money,
Gotcha.
the business was cash flow positive. We were profitable, and we didn't pull a dollar out. We'd sell 50, buy back 100, sell 100, buy back 250. And I remember of all the moments in the business, going from 100 units to 250 was like the hardest decision because it was all the money in the bank account because we were not only 2xing, we were like 2.5xing. So it was like that stretch us so thin. We thought that was the bit like going to be the downfall of CrossNet.
That's crazy. I mean, I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of people out there like, that start businesses that have a bit of an ego where I don't think they'd be willing to have done some of the stuff that you've done because it's like, oh, I'm too good to be on Upwork or doing this side
yeah,
job to make $1,000 or $500. Like, and they want to kind of have this perception that they're kind of, perfect and they're running this business and they're crushing it. But I think if you look like the Airbnb story, how they came up with Serial and then sold it,
yeah.
how I built this, shares that and stuff. Like there's so many of those types of stories in great businesses. And I mean, we've had our share of those crazy times, as a bootstrap company, because
I'm sure.
especially as the bigger you get, the more risk, the bigger the stakes, more things can go wrong. There's, it's one thing if you're talking in tens of thousands of dollars. When you're talking of tens of millions of dollars, like little changes can totally kill the business. And we've had our
Exactly.
fair share, but you have to be willing to kind of roll up your sleeves and do whatever it takes and drop the ego, which I think is
Dude,
hard for some people.
100%. We literally call it scrappy grinder at CrossNet. It's like somebody's just ready to just grind. Like you
I literally
can't.
just got off a call with somebody. I was like, we're gritty grinders. That's what I
Yeah.
told them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and some of those hiring mistakes too. Like we've hired more managers, and there's no like, sure, we have 12 employees. Like, sure, somebody's got to manage some people, but like, no person on this team cannot roll up their sleeves. Otherwise, they're not a part of our company. Like anybody could do anything on any given day.
How, in those early days and even now, like how did you decide on making inventory buys? Like what data did you look at? There's a seasonality to the business too, in a way where, the summer are
Yeah,
really busy times. I know you've made some kind of maybe underbought sometimes, especially with like the summer version, the water
yep,
version, where it's just like
dude, yep.
crushed it. Like how's that evolved, the process of deciding what to buy and the risk, and do you have financing sources at this point to help there?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I we no company will ever say they're at a perfect inventory balance because it's finding the perfect amount to be able to take advantage of the opportunity, like your current situation of like what you're selling within a 90-day window. But also, if you have people hitting the phones and trying to call Target, right, and they come by with a once in a lifetime opportunity, you need to have enough inventory on hand to take advantage of those opportunities, but not enough where it's killing you, where you can't make payroll or you can't have money to spend on marketing. So it's a fine balance that we've tried to get better at each and every day. I'd say our target goal right now is to turn our inventory over 6 times a year. That would be ideal. We're not there yet. More because in a 4-year company lifespan, you make 2 or 3 bad purchasing decisions. You have inventory for 6 months or 8 months, which is never what you want.
Yep.
We've been fortunate that we've been doing our own warehousing since inception, back to the early sugarcane hookah days. Like we've been shipping stuff out of our mom's basement, right? So we never
Didn't you
wanted to
have like
use
a
it.
side business at the time too, of like a
Yeah,
warehousing business in
exactly. Yep, I
Connecticut?
had a 100%. Yeah, I had a side warehousing business that we treat as a 3PL. It wasn't massive, but it helped kind of like the Upwork stuff. And we didn't have to pay crazy storage fees on all this over delivering. So if we would have over ordered, then the storage fees from a 3PL would have also like murdered us. But
Yep.
we're working out of a $500 vinyl record store.
Yeah, I mean, we made the same decision to do our own logistics, and I think it was more out of necessity of like, how are we going to integrate with the third party? Do we have the capital to work with them? I don't know what this is going to cost long term. Are they going to handle our like weird process? So we just
Yeah.
decided, fuck it, we'll do it out of my house to start, and then we found like a really cheap warehouse on Craigslist in New Jersey. Did you do it out of like necessity, just because, and also just cost savings? And do you think that was the right decision? Like, are you going to continue to do first party logistics?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was out of necessity. I don't think any of us were skilled about 3PLs. One big lesson that I do have is that we had our childhood best friend like do our shipping for us. So it kind of like provided him a side job. So he was making money. That was one tough lesson about working with friends. Like we brought somebody in to like help them and help us, and it doesn't end up working, and you lose that
Yep.
friendship, right? So we could
It's
talk
happened to
for
me
hours
plenty of
about
times.
it. Sucks, bro. But in the beginning, it was out of necessity. As the company has scaled, we've had to take on so much space because there's times where, like the summer rush, we need tons, but
And you have a
you
big
realize,
box. I mean, the package is big.
dude, it's big, man. We have a 12,000 square foot facility in San Diego. We have like a 3,000 square foot one up in Canada, and then we have one out in Australia and one out in Europe now. So it's like we're as of
And these are
this
like your
month,
own leases, or you're using other people?
yeah. So we're leasing in Canada and in the United States, and then we have a 3PL now in Australia.
How'd you find the Canadian one? Did you go up there and start looking at buildings and stuff?
We have 3 Canadian contractors, or at least had 3 Canadian contractors, and one of them wanted to ship out of there. So we're like, "Yo, find one that's close to you." And then you don't even realize, like, yo, if you're shipping product from China all the way over to Toronto, you should be trying to find warehousing over in Vancouver to cut down on the freight cost. So
Yep.
whoever can make more warehouses in Vancouver, they need them badly. It's hard to find a 3PL out there.
I mean, Canada real estate in general is just like out of control. And like Toronto is one of the hottest markets over the last few years. And the issue in Canada is they have 5-year mortgages and then they reset. I don't know if it's the same in commercial, but people that like bought apartments there over the last few years, the first off, the price of them has gone up a ton, and now the rates on the mortgages are going up a ton. And it's going to be an
Yeah.
interesting time when some of these people have to kind of re-up now. It's gonna be tricky for some of them.
Yeah.
When it comes to inventory purchasing, obviously these last couple of years have been really tricky in terms of like turn time. You have delays at the ports and delays on the ships and stuff like that, and that could be a huge drag on like cash conversion cycles and how long you have money stuck in inventory.
Yeah.
How'd you guys navigate that over the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's tough. One, it starts with being profitable and having cash on hand and not taking out stupid money and spending money stupidly. We partnered. We got a nice credit line with JP Morgan. So we have a beautiful revolving line of credit with them, which helps. We'll also factor some inventory when needed. So if, let's say Sam's Club just came in with like a $1.5 million order, that's a straight factor. We'll take a little bit of a haircut, but from a cash perspective, we're fine. From there, lead time for us, thankfully, hasn't gotten too terrible. There was sometimes, let's call it 6-8 months ago, we were waiting at the port 3x the amount. But typically, we like to think of things as 30 days manufacturing, 30 days on the water, and let's call it 15 days for fuck ups. And that's the way we think of it. And
And you were able to
then,
maintain somewhere around there the whole pandemic?
yeah, the whole pandemic, not in Canada though, in the United States, absolutely.
That's pretty
And
incredible. I mean, there's companies with much more resources and experience than you all that were totally not holding up like SLAs of 2-3 months. They were taking 4 or 5 months and overbuying on everything.
yeah, fortunately for us, the situation we have with our supplier as well is like practically 0% down. I mean, one of the suppliers is like 5% down, and
Yep.
then they'll make everything, they'll ship everything, and then we'll release money at the port in Los Angeles. So like
Yep.
our cash stays free for a while, which is beautiful.
Yep. And it's mostly, direct to consumer stuff that's getting paid up front. Now, obviously you're going into retail and that's a whole different animal and how these companies kind of pay you. But, in the beginning, at least the first few years was all just getting paid right away through Shopify minus,
Absolutely, dude.
a credit card fee or something.
Yeah, and I think even to that point, like one of the best things that taboo is this to say is, but like when COVID happened, we had 40,000 units back ordered, literally 40,000. There's days where we were doing 100K plus on Shopify with like $2,000 of ad spend. It was just like, it was crazy.
Because there's people are looking for like activities outside, things to do, and you
Trapped in your
guys just
house,
hit
dude.
a chord.
Hence why, yeah, exactly, dude. So that almost serves as like a mini loan almost, because we're spending nothing on ads. We weren't shipping for 60 days because on our website it'd be like sold out for 60 days, buy at your own risk. And people were still buying because they wanted to get on the next order. And so at one point we had like $1 million just like come through within like 30 days on Shopify through this. And it was like, wow.
And at that point, are you feeling kind of like on top of the world? We have all this
Dude,
cash in our bank. You start spending some money. The lifestyle changes a little bit.
Absolutely. I think probably most founders don't go through that, but I think when you kind of feel on top of the world, you feel invincible. You start making reckless hires, right? Like, oh, I don't need to work 12 hours today. If I could just hire somebody for 50 grand, I could work 10 hours. Stuff like that, you know?
Yep, 100%. We'll get into a little bit more of that in a second. Last question about like the story and stuff. Have you gone to China and like gone to some of these factories, or has this all been like remote at this point?
Yeah, I have not personally. Our other co-founder has. He was going once a year, but now that's obviously delayed. What we have done instead is we have somebody like boots on the ground that goes and inspects the factories before all the POs. We'll pay him probably, let's call it 5 or 10 hours a month, kind of as a consultant, and he'll do
Yep.
walkthroughs. And he's also been really helpful, kind of finding a few extra factories to kind of bid against one another.
Yep. And this one, they run like a business for this specifically, or you just like hired an individual guy and kind of trained
He
them up
does this
on?
for a bunch of yeah, he does this for a bunch of other companies. So he's
Yep.
just like an inspector, you know.
In high school I had a Alibaba business selling hoverboards. You remember
Okay.
they like kind of like the
Yep.
boards you stand on. They had speakers and you lean forward and
Exactly.
backwards. And we made it into a brand and we had like custom packaging and everything is Samsung batteries. It was pretty good, but I went through all the same kind of stuff that you went to of like sourcing different vendors, putting them against each other, getting samples sent, custom
Yeah.
packaging, samples, and vector art and all that kind of stuff. And Alibaba is a crazy thing. I mean, I still honestly feel that all you need is a laptop and some Wi-Fi, and you can build like crazy big businesses.
Oh
The
yeah.
barrier to entry is just so much lower at this point.
Yeah,
It's pretty
no.
incredible. So
I agree.
kind of going to the theme of the show, like what's your take on what's going on in the world and the economy and startup world? Obviously there's been every time you go on Twitter or you watch the news, there's some crazy thing happening. There's a war going on, there's inflation,
Yeah.
there's this and that, funding drying up. What's your take, and then how much of it do you think matters to you as a founder and to your business, or how much do you try to kind of just cancel the noise?
Yeah. I mean, everything you just said is 100% accurate, right? We're in a pretty shitty situation here. I feel like our country is more at war than it's ever been, and people just there's two sides of the coin. It doesn't seem like there's a middle anymore, which is good or bad, whatever way you want to put it, but it
Yeah,
is
we're
challenging.
externally and internally to a degree.
Exactly. Exactly. So, from a business perspective, like I don't see like the climate getting much better in the next 6 to 8 months. Granted, I'm not the best politician or economist, but I don't see it getting much better anytime soon. I think people, including myself, are trying to become more smarter about their decisions. Hell, I made the first budget, my personal budget of my life, like 2 weeks ago. Just like
Yep.
maybe as a result of this, who knows? But I think people not making these impulse purchases are going to continue to happen. We've seen like shopper intent go down, our conversion's gone down on our site. We're reacting as a company by putting out more affordable products. Next year, CrossNet will actually retail at $99 instead of $150. We've been working on a model almost for 2 years now that's more affordable and should be more accessible for like the average family, because $150 is an expensive ticket for most people. So
Yep.
as a business, we're reacting. Personally, I'm seeing it in like our Shopify and our daily dashboards. It's definitely hurting, and I think advertising our costs have risen dramatically. So it's a lot of take. We're not getting a lot of give right now, and product costs are going up. It fucking sucks, and consumers don't want to pass that. Like consumers are
Yeah,
not
you're getting
willing
hit
to.
at all angles.
Yeah, exactly.
What
It's
do you
tough.
think are some of the biggest factors? Is it the marketing spend and marketing being less effective? Is it discretionary spend from consumers going down? Is it is there a bit of maybe kind of burnout from the customer base where like you can only buy so many cross nets, or
Yeah.
what do you think are the biggest factors?
I think it's a fine balance. I think discretionary spending is definitely down. However, I do feel like COVID has been beneficial for the backyard games industry, where the time outside is never more important, right? Like we both live in Florida. I'm getting off this call in 30 minutes and I'm going for a walk over the bridge. And like that will
Yep.
be my best part of the day because I've got outside, I got fresh air.
I walked
And
6 miles yesterday on calls. I just like walk
right?
around the neighborhood. I
It's
love it.
great. Yeah. So like that's exactly like that mindset has shifted for most people. I would never go for a bridge walk. I'd be on my boxers watching Netflix, right? Like, but now my mind has changed. Customers' minds have changed. So they're definitely still interested in purchasing backyard games. But me as like a founder, we need to do a better job of putting out more affordable options and also different options. Because CrossNet may not be for everybody, but there might be five other games that come out with that may.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like, are you thinking about the seasonality component? Like, obviously, there's a ton of purchasing in March, April, May, June, July, August. But I don't know if you know the story of Solomon, the ski brand, but they ended up buying TaylorMade, like 15, 20 years ago because they wanted a complementary summer sport to
Yep.
their winter kind of ski gear. Do you guys think about how you can kind of create more continuity throughout the year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we created an indoor product that lets CrossNet be set up inside, which is great for gym teachers and also good for the blacktop. But we know that you have to be a hardcore. Like, I'm not setting up CrossNet in my apartment, so that doesn't answer your question effectively. That's more for gym teachers.
Yep.
What we're also trying to do is we set up distribution out in Australia. So ideally, this year will be our first year where we have 365 days of sunshine. Starts getting rainy and cloudy or snowy in New Jersey, shut off the ad spend. Go to Sydney, Australia, where it's 90 degrees out. So
Yep.
now we are armed for the first time ever to do that. We started it last year. It was super good for like a month or two, and then their winter came and it just shut down, and they got locked down with COVID again. So
Yep.
this we'll have 365 days of sunshine, and then building products that can be played indoors is also
Yep.
the future.
How are you feeling about pickleball? I saw you launch pickleball. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing games in America, probably the fastest growing game in America.
Yeah,
Do you see that being a pretty big area of
I
investment for you guys?
I do. So we're working on putting out a line of paddles right now, and then also we have a four-way net. You could quickly adjust it and make it normal pickleball, or you could play crossnet style. It's the same regulation size, which is great, and also super portable. So where I live right now in Edgewater, there's never a court available ever. There's no shot I could ever play. Granted, I don't have a driveway. It seems like you may up in Fort Lauderdale, but you can put a
Yep.
pickleball net right out in your driveway and play, which most of America doesn't live inside of the Miami bubble. They have a driveway, they have a
Yep.
backyard, or they have a cul-de-sac to go to. So I see pickleball being massive for us. I don't think there's a really. I'm sure there's a few brands in pickleball, but there's none that like own the market like a Wilson does or like a Spalding does right now.
Yeah,
So I
I would
think
have no idea of, like, I don't associate any brand with pickleball. I mean, there's like,
exactly. So
from a paddle standpoint, that recess company I think has done pretty well on the higher end, but I don't
yep,
know who like the pickleball company is by any means.
exactly. And I figure with our distribution already at retail, I think we should be pretty primed to like enter that market pretty hot. We coming out
Yep.
with some really good products, and
And
I
what's
think we
interesting too, I
do
think your nets, you can take them as four way, but then also kind of collapse them to just a regular net, right?
exactly
So you have
100%.
that the flexibility. Is that like a patent pending, like a patent type thing, or because I know you've had a lot of trouble with Target coming out with their own shitty version of your
Yeah,
net and stuff. Like what's that been like?
it's been challenging. So we have a patent, but as you know, a patent's only good if you're going to defend it. And when somebody like Target comes at you, and you want to get into Target because you're not in Target yet, but you
And they're
also want
probably
to
selling
see
it for what,
Target.
like $70 or something
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And all the reviews are this is the biggest piece of shit ever. And then on the opposite side, we'll get like people tagging us on like a Saturday of them playing CrossNet, and it's
Yeah,
the shitty version. And like so they're like ripping off our brand. So we are
and I think it's
actively
yellow too, right? Isn't it like the
there's
same
some
similar color?
there's some that are yellow, there's red, there's blue, there's rainbow. It's
Oh,
crazy.
man.
But we're actively defending the patent now. We actually yeah, I guess I could say this. We got a settlement offer. And we're going to continue to defend it because like yeah, we need to
Yeah,
defend it.
screw 'em.
Yeah, we think we have a very strong patent, so we're excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, your product is very unique and defensible and distinguishable versus
Yeah.
like many other kind of out there. What about, it seems like schools and these school programs are a huge channel or a huge opportunity. You said you're in what, 15,000 different school programs or
Yeah.
1,500 school
Nearly.
programs. What was it? How'd you even get into that? And then what was it like learning like that sales cycle? And do you think that that's going to continue to be a big driver or not as much?
Yeah, I think so completely. I mean, how it started was I had a buddy from high school who's our town gym teacher now, and I gave him a call like right in the early days, being like, dude, as a gym teacher, how the hell do you like spend your money, right? Like I know marketers have money to kind of piss away sometimes. Like, how do you spend your money, and when do you spend your money? And he's like, dude, I buy from this catalog, and my buddy over at this school buys from this catalog. So I took the Uber ticket, like Uber really helped. So I just cold called these people, and I'm like, dude, have you heard of CrossNet? And it's like a 50-year-old, like really nice lady. And she's like, no, what's CrossNet? And I'm like, the world's first four-way volleyball game. Every school's playing it. And so I did that for about 5 catalogs, and they put CrossNet front and center on the home, on like literally the front cover of their catalog, which is like 1,000
Yeah.
pages long. And orders just start coming in, and they
Did
only
you have
sell
to
to
give them like an
schools.
exclusive thing, or you could go in all 5 catalogs?
Oh no, we go in all the catalogs. I'm like actively, when I have downtime, I hunt for catalogs because it's like free exposure. They print you in the catalog, so you get like ad spend almost, and then they start ordering. And the nice thing about the
And
gyms,
are
you
they
can
just like a channel? Like they just bring you the order, like they don't buy wholesale kind of
no,
stock?
they buy wholesale. They'll buy like tens of thousands of dollars,
Damn.
and they'll stock it all. They'll ship it, and yeah. So now we're doing that for soccer. We're trying to find like places that soccer coaches buy and get on all those channels as well. But yeah, it's a great business and
It's crazy. I
pretty
mean,
cool.
businesses that figure out distribution channels, you can just like pop new products into it all day long. Like Wilson, for example,
Yep,
nothing's to say that Wilson's like the greatest quality or the greatest products. It's just that they're synonymous with sports and they have the distribution, and whatever they launch, people are going to buy it. Like I see a
exactly.
Wilson mini hockey net. Like they're not even known for hockey, but they can
Yeah,
sell it because they just have the distribution. And so I
absolutely.
think, I guess that's kind of like where you see things going, is just continuing to solidify your guys' self as like the modern sports brand and coming up with new ways to do, reinvent kind of classic, games, and reinvent new games, and then utilize the channels that you have to just keep selling into them.
Yeah, that's literally, you're hitting the nail on the head. We're I don't know when this podcast will drop, but we're coming out with a new line called Good Sport. It comes out September 7th, and it's literally exactly what you said. Like being the home of innovative backyard games. My goal is, dude, we have 30 awesome ideas, and you can't do all 30, of course, but there's a few bangers in there that are just as good, if not better, than CrossNet. And
Yep.
why are we still buying from the same brands that our parents bought from? Like, there's a new sparkling seltzer, or new food, or a new clothing brand every single week. It's never happened in backyard. So that's what I want to do.
Yep, I love it. And then retail. I mean, retail's a totally different animal versus selling,
Yeah.
e-commerce. Like what have been the hardest lessons that you've learned through retail?
I mean, the first one is you get your product in a Walmart and you assume it's going to sell, right? Because it's in Walmart. But getting in is the easiest part. It's like selling through, which is the most challenging. And then how do I, from my bedroom in Miami, get you in like Nebraska to walk into your local Walmart and pick up our game off the shelf? So trying to build that attribution has been super challenging. Getting the inventory. How do we finance all of this stuff, which has been crazy and a lot of stress? And do you take on bad debt to get a decent sized PO eventually, or do you not? How much debt are you willing to take on to fund all this shit? And
Yep.
then what happens when one partner does something and it pisses off the other partner? Then what partner do you give preferential treatment to? It's been a fun learning lesson.
Has there Have you seen kind of like a halo effect on the e-commerce where the brand has just more exposure being in these retail outlets so that the e-com then performs better, or there's like more brand recall, or not as much?
Yeah, I would think it's vice versa, where as retail started to like really build out, our direct to consumer sales really slowed down. But our Amazon sales went crazy. So I think as like a consumer, I don't know if you do this, I certainly do. I'm in Target and I'll quickly look on Amazon, right? If the product weighs 20
Yeah,
pounds and if
because
I
we're
could buy it
cheap
on
and we're
Amazon,
scrappy.
exactly. If I could buy it on Amazon for the same cost and I don't have to lug this 20-pound thing home to my house, fuck yeah, I'm doing Amazon. So
Yeah.
we'd see Amazon scales go through the roof when we started doing retail. Our direct to consumer site, I can make it as beautiful as possible. But why are you going to want to buy on crossnetgame.com? Like, I wouldn't buy on crossnetgame.com. I'd buy on my Amazon because it's that much quicker and like easier for the customer.
Yep. And how much worse are the economics on Amazon for you guys through versus selling directly?
Directly. Well, Amazon takes roughly like an 18% fee, give or take. So, yeah, not
The
not as
volume's just unprecedented though.
the volume. We're the number one volleyball net in the entire world, which is weird.
Did you think
Um,
you'd be able to say that 4 years ago?
nah, it's fucking crazy. It's a wild feeling for sure. So yeah, it's just like you're saying with Wilson. No category expansion. Why are we
Yep.
not selling a normal volleyball net? Just a normal, nice $100 volleyball net. There's no
Yep.
brand in volleyball either. So I think
Yep.
that's
For
just where
sure.
we're going.
So what about you? I was observing your kind of lifestyle over the last couple of years, and you like to travel, you like to have a good time, you like to go out to dinner, whatever it is. And it seems like this year, you're changing things up a little bit. You talked about having a personal budget and this and that. What have you kind of seen over the last like 6 to 12 months that's made you kind of change that? Did you learn lessons? Like I know I had issues with like kind of commingling funds in the beginning, where company
Oh, yeah.
funds become my personal funds to use and stuff. Like what's kind of been your evolution of how you kind of live your personal lifestyle as a
Yeah.
founder growing?
Spot on, dude. I mean, I think think we're pretty much the same age, give or take. But I'm turning 30 later this year, and I'm getting married in 30 days. And like, one, that's a massive expense, right? Like, I want to buy a
Yep.
house soon. It's just getting to the point where you got to be an adult, right? And you can't just keep buying these $2,000 festival tickets if you want. Like, you got to really manage your budget. So I think that's been a wake up call this year in my life, whether that's business related or just personal. It's happened. But no, I think if I look back to 2021, we came into the year off a massive growth year. We went from 2 million in sales to 9 million. So like, companies going crazy. We're more profitable than ever because we had this COVID inflection, and none of us have lived through COVID, right? So like, was it a COVID bump, or was CrossNet just fucking killing it? Like, and
A little bit of both.
how do you make that decision, right? And like, how do you forecast? So we started as a company just getting really passive, like, hire all these people because we want to grow this company 3x next year on top of that. And like, how attainable is that? Oh, let's do a fucking 18-person retreat to Tulum for team bonding because we're all remote and suffer so hard. So
Yep.
yeah, our T&E budget was crazy last year, and just this year, like, really starting in like March of this year, we looked at each other and we're like, dude, it's time to bunker down. Like, all this shit needs to stop. It's hard firing people, especially people you've become really good friends with, but you need to do whatever you need to do to keep the company alive. So we've definitely made some pretty drastic measures this year as a result of the economy and also just profitability.
I think it's so easy to, like, put things under the guise of growth and then get really fat and inefficient. It's like, oh, we need to hire this because we're investing in this, growth area and it's really important. Whereas, I know, Ron, I think from Obvi, they're
Yeah.
doing like 20 million. They have like 4 full-time employees, like, you always justify the need for like this next person, this next investment. But a lot of times you realize when you pull that away, you really didn't need it at all. Like, after you've made these expense cuts, like, let's say, I don't remember what the doc said, but maybe 30, 40, 50%, you've cut
Yeah.
expenses this year versus like what you were
Oh
going to
yeah,
spend.
absolutely.
Have you seen a huge impact in terms of like productivity on a daily basis?
No, you're absolutely correct. You're like, what the fuck did these people do all 40 hours a week, right? And there's definitely been some. I think what it has taught me, though, is that there are some areas that I'm just not good at as an operator. And there are weaknesses that are very glaring, and we need to get the people into those holes. But I think we had all this additional coverage for so long where people were kind of two timing jobs, and it was just messy. So I making the cuts definitely hurt in the moment. I wouldn't recommend prolonging them. You just got to rip off the band-aid and do it. But no, it's been very productive for our business, and it's more clear than ever what are like the 2 or 3 big things. And I'm also working a lot more, which not as fun, but you got to do it.
I mean, I think sometimes though, like working a bit more, getting deeper in the business, you start to understand it a lot more, and you start to see things
Yeah,
so much more clearly. Because I think, to your point, when things are going well and you kind of take a back seat a bit in the business, very quickly things can start to unravel, and you don't really realize it until they start to like get bad. And you have to kind of stay on top of the pulse at all times. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be doing every job. Like, you want to empower people to do it, but the minute that you, as like the leader of the company, like, don't really know what goes on the day to day, it's, you start to lose touch with it. You start to lose touch with the customers, and it's hard to get that back. And that
exactly.
happened to me as well. Like, we grew so much over the last few years. You start to be like, oh, this is easy. Like, the entrepreneurship game, it's easy. But that was just a trick. Like, the last few years were not normal. They were
Yeah,
artificially easy, like easy money. Customers could spend all this money. This is where, I believe this is the time where real entrepreneurs start to pull ahead, because they have to hunker down and start to make really strategic decisions that
yeah,
matter, versus like, oh, everyone could just float by and build a decent business.
absolutely,
So,
100%, dude.
so just to kind of to wrap it up. I mean, if there's other founders out there, that are listening and kind of in maybe a similar spot that maybe you were a few months ago, or in a similar spot that you were 4 years ago, just back against the
Yeah.
wall, kind of not sure what the future holds. Maybe they're going to go out of business if they don't make any changes. Like, what's your biggest piece of advice for those teams right now?
uh, really look across the organization and say, the way we broke it down was like, who couldn't this company live without right now? And all those people that are not on that list probably may need to go. I don't want to just say it's okay to fire people if I don't know anything about them, but like, we've had to get super, super lean over the last 6 months to the point where we've all became so, so scrappy. Yeah, maybe working 2 or 3 hours more, but my company's going to survive. You need to do whatever you can to keep your company survive, stop the bleeding, and turn it around to be profitable, because like, these valuations are done. They're probably going to continue to get worse, and we need to all be building towards profitability, if not now, like immediately.
Yep. Yeah, I think getting control of the situation, not relying on some third party to send you a life preserver, I think is super important. You want to take control into your own hands. But awesome. Well, we could go into it for another few hours, but we're both in Miami. I want you to do your bridge walk and enjoy the sun rays and get some vitamin D. But this was a ton of fun, and maybe we'll have you on again and catch up in another 3 to 6 months or so.
Sounds good, dude. I appreciate you having me on. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Sweet. Awesome, man. Thanks for listening to the Out of the Woods podcast. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. More episodes are on the way. If you want to keep the conversation going, suggest questions, or nominate guests for future episodes, you can reach me on Twitter at Michael Martocci. Good luck and see you next time.